6:20, no, 6:30 is 20 starting point. This is fun. Section 2, repeat offenders. You may resist being branded as a sinner. That's understandable, but the truth is, it's a brand no honest person can avoid. A sinner is anyone who knows the difference between right and wrong and chooses to do wrong on purpose. Sound like someone you know? Perhaps your resistance to being branded a sinner stems from its close association with divine condemnation, alienation, and separation. Listen to the average street preacher, and you may conclude that not only does being a sinner condemn you to hell, but also that God is actually looking forward to sending you there. Jesus had a very different response to those wearing the sinner brand. When you read the Gospels, you can't help noticing that he was attracted to sinners. Never once do we find him threatening them with hell. Not once. In fact, just the opposite is true. Jesus' response to sinners was an offer of restoration. As a result, people who were nothing like Jesus liked Jesus, and he liked them back. Self-righteous religious leaders who peddled graceless religion were the only ones Jesus consistently condemned. Jesus had little patience for religious people who considered themselves sinless. He knew better. He knew they knew better as well. Jesus taught that sin separates us from God, but that God's willingness to forgive reconnects us. So it was important to Jesus that men and women faced and embraced their status as sinners so they would recognize their need for forgiveness. Mistakers don't ask for forgiveness. Mistakers don't need forgiveness. Mistakers just need opportunities to do better next time. When Jesus talked about sin, he made it too all-inclusive that nobody could escape. He said things like, "You have heard that it was said, 'You shall not commit adultery.' But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart." Ouch. Jesus raised the standard so high that nobody made a passing grade. Then he turned right around and insisted that God was on an endless pursuit to restore his relationship with sinners. The transaction that made this possible was a personal admission of guilt and a request for forgiveness. So while being branded a sinner is uncomfortable, Jesus taught that it is necessary. Sinners need forgiveness. Forgiveness is the means by which humanity is restored to a right relationship with the Heavenly Father. The difficulty we have in accepting responsibility for our behavior lies in the desire to avoid the pain of the consequences of that behavior. M. Scott Peck. 4 minutes, 7:50. Section 2. Questions for reflection. Number 1, what does the fact that Jesus was attracted to sinners say about him? Number 2, what does it cost a person to acknowledge he or she is a sinner? Number 3, do you resist the idea of being called a sinner? Why or why not? But until a person can say deeply and honestly, "I am what I am today because of the choices I made yesterday," that person cannot say, "I choose otherwise." Stephen or Covey. Section 3, only one person. The Gospels record breathtaking events in which Jesus extended forgiveness and restoration to individuals who were considered beyond redemption. One involved a woman caught in adultery. This was not a one-time occurrence. This was not a mistake. It was an accident. She knew better. Jewish law required that she be stoned. Jesus, who taught that the law was good and should be obeyed, invited those who assembled for the stoning to go ahead and commence the punishment, but with one interesting caveat. Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her. John 8:7. Jesus didn't offend her. Jesus didn't dumb down her sin. Jesus didn't give her any wiggle room. No talk of her desperate plight or her difficult upbringing. She was guilty as charged and deserved to be punished. Again, he invited it. But no one moved. No one threw a stone. Eventually, the crowd dissipated. The oldest members of the mob were the first to leave. Before long, Jesus was alone with the frightened woman. It was only then that he addressed her directly. Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you? No one, sir, she said. John 8:10-11. What he said next is, well, breathtaking. Then neither do I condemn you, Jesus declared. Go now and leave your life of sin. John 8:11. Jesus, who called people to an impossible standard of behavior, declared this condemned woman uncondemned. This apparent contradiction reflects the essence of Jesus' message and ministry. He did not condone sin. He did not condemn sinners. He called sin sin, but instead of insisting people get what the law and they had coming, he extended the very thing sinning people deserve least forgiveness. This is page 30. Okay, stop on page 30.